Okay, so what we're looking at is the butterfly bouquet, and this is available at the moment until the 3rd of May, and that's when the new catalogue will be coming out. And the butterfly bouquet, as in the stamp set and the dies, will be available, as far as I know, in the new catalogue when it does come out, but some of the other products won't be. So if I just bring this other page in, so you've got the Butterfly Brilliance stamp set and the Brilliant Wings dies. Now they will be continuing on as a bundle. Okay, and you've got the Butterfly now I'm not quite sure that I'm pronouncing this correctly. The Butterfly Beaujeu designer series paper and the Natural Touch specialty paper. Now those papers are only available while stocks last until the 3rd of May. So if you're wanting them, get in quick. I have been told along the grapevine, or heard along the grapevine, that the Butterfly Beaujeu designer series paper may be already out of stock in America. So if you want it, don't wait too long. You can also purchase the complete Butterfly Brilliance collection, which has got everything in it that's available at the moment. So just remember, those papers are only available while stocks last. So don't leave it too long. But today we're just going to be using the Butterfly Brilliance, the cling stamp set. So here's my stamp set, and I've got it all set up here on my Stamp-A-Majig. Now, just to let you know what products we're going to be using, or what you need if you want to follow along. We're using Coastal Cabana cardstock as our card base, and I've measured this at 10.5 centimeters by 29.9, which is half a sheet of A4 cardstock. So you can very easily do this if in America by just dividing that your letter size cardstock in half, which I think is 4.25 inches by 11 inches. So it's just half a sheet of whatever cardstock that you're using. You then need a piece of Whisper White cardstock, or a couple of pieces of Whisper White cardstock. Our first piece is going to be our card front, which we're going to colour. Now this piece here, now let me just grab my measurements so I know I've got it all right. My card front is 9.5 centimeters by 13.9 centimeters. So it's roughly here in Australia about 1 centimeter narrower than what your quarter sheet of your A4. So in the United States, you'd probably want to be cutting it down about 1/2 inch. Then I've cut a mat also in my Whisper White, and my mat is actually about 3 millimeters bigger, or probably in America probably about 1/4 inch, or a bit less than 1/4 inch bigger than my card front. So what I've cut my card mat here in Australia is 9.8 by 14.2. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try to convert that into inches. My brain doesn't work that quickly today. And then I've also got a third piece of Whisper White, and that's going to go on the inside of my card, and that piece is 10 centimeters by 14.4. So it's about 1/2 centimeter narrower than 1/4 of my cardstock. I've then got a strip of basic black, which we're going to stamp our sentiment on, and that's 9.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. Now I'm using the Butterfly Brilliance, but I'm also going to use the sentiment from Happy Thoughts, and I'm using today the Happy Birthday. Just to show you what card we're going to try to make. This is one I made just a little while ago. So we're just going to do some embossing on this and some embossed resist. It's the first time I've actually given it a go with embossing these butterflies, and they've come up a lot better than what I really expected. So I'm really pleased with this. So considering half an hour ago I really didn't know what we're going to be doing. And the 3 colours that I've used in this, just so that you know, so if you want to play along you can. I've used the Misty Moonlight, the Bermuda Bay, and the Coastal Cabana, and we're going to be using our blending brushes to blend these colours onto our cardstock. So let me get this all put to one side and let's get started. Okay, there's quite a few people watching us today. Hi Nancy, how are you? Hi Caroline. It's wonderful to see you all on. Okay, so I've already mounted this on here, and now I haven't mounted this straight because I didn't want my butterflies just going straight. So let me grab the right piece of cardstock. So it's the smaller out of all those three that I've cut, which is this one here. I've already put a mark on my paper here just to guide me where I'm going to be putting my cardstock, but I've also just popped a silicone mat underneath just to give me a little bit more height when stamping this stamp. I found the other day I was having a little bit of trouble getting really good coverage, so just getting that little bit more height in there is just going to give me that slightly better coverage. So I'm going to put my magnet on there so it's out of the road. Put my brushes there. Now let me put a stamp box underneath that so we can see what we're doing. Get myself a little bit more organized, and let's see if we can move this into view so hopefully you can see most of what I'm doing here. Okay, so we're going to use our Versamark, and we're going to stamp this all over. Now, as I said, I have actually put my stamps on at an angle, and they're not going all the way up to the top. If you have a look at my original card, that's the top of my stamps, roughly about there. So I've left a sort of a blank spot up the top for my sentiment. So make sure you well and truly cover that stamp with your Versamark ink. Close this up. Whoops, we want to make sure that is out of the road. Just let me turn that around the other way. It was just a little bit in the road. And then we're going to stamp down and just push down fairly firmly because we want really good coverage with that Versamark. Now today I'm going to be using white embossing powder. Normally I would use clear, but today I thought no, I'm going to use white because I just want a really nice crisp card with lots of white showing. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Carefully lift that up. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's remove that. Move that out of the road. Just noticing I've got a little bit of colour left on that from when I was using Stays On. I didn't quite get that as clean, but hopefully our white embossing powder will hide all of that. So I'm being fairly generous with my embossing powder. Now you could have, if you've got your embossing buddy, you could put your embossing buddy onto that just to make sure we've got no clumps, no static. But I think there's just one little area there. If you've got a paintbrush, what you can do, if you get an area where you have got a little bit of powder clinging where it shouldn't, and that could be because you've had your fingers on your cardstock or something like that, a bit of grease. Just give it a really good tap, make sure you've got rid of all that excess. Just brush away any little bits you don't want. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's pour this excess back into our jar, so we can reuse this. Put that lid on so I don't spill it. Okay. Now this is going to get a little bit noisy because we're going to use our heat gun here. I'm just warming it up. And we're going to put some heat to this to melt that powder. And if you watch it at the moment, it's like a matte. It'll actually go nice, shiny and white. So let me just move my lighting out of the road. It tends to, I might switch it off, see if it gets rid of that rolling. I don't know whether it is or not. Being a fairly awful day outside, I don't have really good light in this room. So let's just heat this up and let's watch the magic. You can heat it a little bit from the back, which stops any embossing powder flying off. Also stops your paper from curling a little bit. Now this is starting to change. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's going from a matte white to quite a shiny white. You do have to work over the whole piece that you stamped and make sure that it is all changed. And at this point, don't be tempted to touch your white embossing, which I have done in the past, because it will smudge while it's in a semi-liquid at the moment. So, but it doesn't take long to dry. So that's all done. Sorry again for that noise. Okay, so just let that dry. So don't be tempted to touch this when you're heating it, because you can tend to smudge it and it will come off a little bit. I know that from experience, from sort of like going, is that done, and touching it and went, oh, okay, yes it was, and now I've got to do it again. Okay, so once that's done, we're going to put some colour to this. So I'm going to start off with my dark colour at the bottom. So I'm starting off with the Misty Moonlight. And I've got my lovely blending brushes. So these are our blending brushes, which we've got in our mini catalogue at the moment. Okay, they've got like a, what we call it, like a toothbrush handle, and they're quite flexible there. So what I tend to do when I hold my brushes is I actually hold it right up there towards the top, so the bottom part of it is in my hand, and then my fingers are holding onto the brush. We're going to take our brush to our pad and just go around in a circle just to get some colour on there. Now when we're putting colour onto our cardstock, we're going to work off our paper on, but my paper here is a little bit curved because of the heating. So I'm just going to put my fingers on either edge here, and I'm just going to start off my paper, just take a little bit of that excess off and then come on. So I want to put a little bit more colour into this one than I did in my last one. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker down there. Again, just working off and coming back on again. And I want it dark in sort of all those edges there into that corner. And just petering off at the top, because we are going to add more colour. So put that one to the side at the moment, and then we're going to take our Bermuda Bay, and we're going to do the same thing with our Bermuda Bay. So again, just putting some colour on our brush, going in a circular motion. Take a little bit off on my scratch paper underneath, and then I'm going to start from the edge here and work on and just blend into that Misty Moonlight. Now we can come back with our Misty Moonlight and just bring that in a bit more and bring it in a little bit darker where we might want it. Okay, a bit more Bermuda Bay because I want to bring that height of that up a bit higher. And I'm sort of doing this at an angle. I'm not doing it straight because I sort of want a little bit of I don't want lines going right across and sort of like it looks like it's striped. I just want it sort of all blending into each other. So I'm taking this right down into that misty moonlight at the bottom. And now I'm going to bring in my third colour, which is the Coastal Cabana. So again, just making sure I've got plenty of that on my brush. Take a little bit off and then starting from that edge again and work on. So this one I'm going to take right up to the very top, but I do want it to blend quite well and have a bit of depth of colour there where it meets the Coastal Cabana. I'm just going to turn this around. I don't want it to have it too dark at the top. I just want that fairly light. So I'm just taking off that white and just blending those colours out. Blending that down a bit more. I'm going to pop a little bit more Bermuda Bay in there. So once you're happy with that, and I've probably taken my colour a little bit darker up the top than I really wanted to, but that's okay. Just blend that in a little bit. Once you're happy, then you can get a piece of tissue, or I've just got some kitchen paper here, and I'm just going to give this a bit of a brush up because where the white embossing is, the ink is just sitting there on the surface. So I just wanted to remove a little bit of that. So there's our card front. So I'm just going to close these up so I don't put my hands into them. Yeah, I heard the paper has gone in America, but it's gone in Canada as well. Yeah, Nancy, I love the butterflies. I think they're just gorgeous. That's why my blog page is called Butterflies and Bows, because I really do love butterflies. So I thought this stamp set was very, very apt for me. Okay, so that's our card front done. So what we can do now is grab our bases. We're going to grab our card front, a card base, sorry. And I have scored this at halfway, which is at the scoring for here in centimeters is 14.9. So, and now I'm just going to fold that in half. So this is a fairly simple card that can look quite effective, I think. Burnish that with my bone folder. Oh, I must have had a bit of ink on my fingers. I'm going to turn that to the back. Okay, so we need our Whisper White matte, and we're going to adhere our matte. Too many half-empty bottles here. Adhere this, whoops, one thing we're going to do before we actually adhere all that together. I'm going to put some spots on there. I'm going to do that by just adding a little bit of water. So I've got a habit sometimes of adding too much, so let's see if we can get enough. Just flicking some water down. And what that does is actually takes a bit of the colour got a bit there. So let me just turn that around. No, I've got a bit there. I've got, as I said, sometimes I've got the habit of putting on too much, and I think I've just done that. That's okay. So what happens there is that the water actually will push the ink outwards, so it just dilutes the areas where the water is hit. So I'm just going to hit that again with the heat gun and just dry that off a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's dry enough for us to keep working. And we're going to adhere this onto our card mat. So I like to use my multi-purpose glue because it allows me just to slip the card front on and get it into the position I want it, because I am working with a very small increment going around, like something like 1.5 mil by the time you divide that 3 mil in half. So it just gives me that few seconds to be able to sort of say, okay, I'm happy with that in that position. Okay, so once we've done that, we're now going to adhere that straight down onto our card base, and again just using the multi-purpose glue. You could also use dimensionals if you want to set it up, but lately I've been finding I've only been using my dimensionals on my sentiments and flowers and things like that where I want to get a bit of height, whereas sometimes with a card you don't really want that much height in it. Again, the multi-purpose glue is allowing me just to slip that into place where I want it. So as I said, this is a nice and quick, easy card to do. I'm just going to pop that to one side. I'm just going to bring in the insert for the inside of our card. And what I thought I might do is just sponge a little bit of the Coastal Cabana just to give a little bit of colour, and since I'm not using any designer series paper, a little bit of interest into the inside of the card. So I'm just going around very lightly, and I'm not even necessarily going to do all 4 sides. I'm just going to do 2 sides, I think, and just into that corner. That's enough just to add a little bit of colour. Doesn't have to be too much. And then again we can adhere that to the inside of our card. Okay, so that is that part of our card. So let's pop that to one side. And now we have our sentiment. So I've already mounted my sentiment here. And nice clean side there. And I've got my Versamark, because again we're going to emboss this. So again, just tapping in my Versamark ink. Now this is going to be a trick to see if I can get this nice and straight. Don't mind my head if it gets in the road, I'm sorry. I'm going to stamp that right there. Oh, a little bit crooked, but that's okay. So we need our scrap paper in here again just to catch our embossing powder. Really miss that embossing buddy when I don't use it. Just go around all this and okay, I'm happy with that. So let's just heat that up. So again, sorry for the noise. I would recommend that if you have got an embossing buddy to run your embossing buddy over your cardstock just to get rid of all that static so you don't get those little white spots like I've got there. Now I do have this a little bit crookeder than I would have hoped, so I'm just going to see if I can trim this up a little bit, and I'm going to use my little mini trimmer. Good trick here, if you don't have much room there, if you've got some post-it notes, which I should have some here, grab a post-it note, pop it underneath there, and that sort of gives you a little bit of a handle to move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually line that up there and trim that down. Take my post-it note off and just do the other side as well. See if I can get a nice straight cut. Oops, just a little bit of paper there caught. That's actually a lot better. So making a little handle like that works really well. So let's work out. Now my other card, I put my sentiment at the top. Could put that down more towards the bottom. I think I still might continue it at the top, but I'm going to trim this down a little bit. Don't you love it when your scissors all get all tied up? And this time I think I'm going to put an angle onto there like that. Okay, so we're going to use some dimensionals just to pop that up. Only need one or two, and I might just trim that a little bit more just to make sure that's nice and straight. Actually, I think I'm going to sit that one down there a bit. Yep. Okay, then the last thing we can do is just add a little bit of bling, and I'm just going to add some diamantes, put some rhinestones onto this. My take a pick tool is gone for a wander. There it is. Put things away, then I can't find them. Who else has that problem? Okay, so I'm going to pop one just there. You can tell how often I use the rhinestones. This is still the old packaging. Put it in a triangle. It sort of brings your eye all together in there. Okay, so that's our card for today. So let me just grab the one I made earlier. Clear a bit of my rubbish out of the road so you can see. So there's the card I made a little bit earlier, and there's the one we've just finished today. So I hope you've enjoyed this card. I hope you have a go at doing something similar yourself. Try embossing the butterflies. As I said, I was actually quite surprised how well they embossed, and they look really good. So oh, good, Pamela. I hope you do make it. Please make sure you post it onto Facebook and tag me in it so I can actually see what you've come up with. It'd be great to see. So I hope you've enjoyed this card, and just let me flip this camera over. Okay, so as I said, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining me today. Look forward to catching up later and seeing what you've all made, and to read all your comments. Please come and join me again next Friday as we make something else. Maybe it might be a fun fold or something. I'll see what I can come up with. Okay, have a lovely day. Take care. Bye for now.